Hello and welcome to this week's podcast. Shortly, I'm going to be introducing this week's guest to you. But before I do that, I want to introduce the topic, and that is sleep. Now, sleep can be such a blessing, but it can feel like such a curse if you're struggling with your sleep. So, if you're going through a period of struggling, or you would describe yourself as experiencing insomnia, then this is the podcast episode for you. So I have to be really upfront and say, throughout my life, I've been an amazing sleeper. I have lots of jokes about it in our community, saying that I've got a talent for sleeping, but actually, I felt really guilty about it for many years because I've considered myself lazy because I've needed so much sleep. 8 hours is great. I can function on seven, but if I could get 9 hours, that's a sweet spot for me. So I'd love to hear from you. What is your sweet spot of sleep? I've just got back from a holiday in America. I think I've done 13 hours when I got back. So I can go for those really long sleeps. And I have gone through periods of my life where, especially during the perimenopause, that I've had more difficulty sleeping. Now, for your information, a thing that I found that really disturbs my sleep as a perimenopausal woman is things that produce heat in the body, because that's what gives me the night sweats, which I don't experience on a regular basis. But when I do experience them, I can think back, what have I eaten or drunk today, or what's been different? How are my emotions? And quite often that will be the culprits will be garlic, because garlic can produce a lot of heat in the body. So I have a very low garlic diet these days. In fact, I had an experience on holiday recently where I had a pesto, a really garlicky pesto. And for about an hour afterwards, I felt super sensitive. I couldn't be around noise, I couldn't be around people. It really had an effect on my body and my nervous system. So do tune into the effects of garlic. And also, I'm not a regular alcohol drinker, but especially on holiday or if it's a special occasion, I might enjoy a glass of wine. And I've noticed that red wine produces a lot of heat in my body and can therefore cause those night sweats as well. So that would definitely disrupt my sleep. But I used to be a clock watcher. When I couldn't fall asleep at night or I'd wake up in the night, I'd be counting how many hours sleep have I got left. And then that would stress me out further. And I've come to learn that it's really beneficial to not look at the clock. So if I do wake up in the night or I can't sleep, I just don't look at the clock at all. I just tell myself that's absolutely irrelevant and I'm still resting. Even if I'm not sleeping, I am resting. And then what I'll do is if I've tried for more than what I guess will be an hour, I will allow myself to get up. I don't put any tech on, so I'm not there with the TV or the phone or anything else, but I might allow myself to either change rooms, so that can help sometimes, or even if you can't change rooms, go on the sofa or something like that. But often I will journal. So I'll just say that there's something that wants to move through me right now, and it will often be creative ideas that want to flow. So I might have ideas going through my mind, and I'll just journal them all out. And once I've done that and emptied my mind, often I can sleep. Now, as a naturopathic nutritionist, I've learned a lot about when you can't sleep, what to do, and we've got a whole session on that inside our membership, the Holistic Health Circle. We even had a previous member who done a whole course on sleep herself. I think she actually got it through the GP. So when her children were younger and she was really struggling, she went to the GP and they sent her on a course and it really helped. So she shared her wisdom. I shared mine as a naturopathic nutritionist. And then Sarah, the other half of the Holistic Health Collective, she's actually a dispensing optician by trade, so she knows a lot about light, the spectrum of light, what time we need different types of light into the body and what time we don't. So blue light you probably would have heard of already, and not to get that towards bedtime. But this makes a huge impact, more than you could realize, on your health actually. So things like getting morning sunlight within the first 30 minutes of waking and not having blue light, so technology in the last 2 hours before bed. And if you need to, you could use those blue blocking glasses. But for our members, dive into that session. If you want to join the Holistic Health Circle to watch that session, then I'll share the link in the show notes so you can find your way there. But as a naturopathic nutritionist, I learned a lot of things. For example, magnesium can really help to relax all the muscles in the body. So it may be that you're low on magnesium. There are certain foods that will stimulate us. If you are having sugar, if you eat chocolate in the evening after dinner, anytime before bedtime or ice cream, something like that, very likely to stimulate you. And there's other foods that can actually help you sleep. So things like black cherries and oats are really good before bedtime if you need something to help you get through the night. And there's certain other things, so moving the body, getting exercise so you're tired. And spending time out in nature every single day can make a really big difference. It can help us ground, or earth, sometimes people know that as. It can help to recalibrate our circadian rhythm. And nature is very healing for the nervous system as well. Quite often, I found that when we can't sleep, it's actually our own bad habits. So that's not to blame anyone. It's not to say it's your fault, but often we're doing things that we don't realize that are not helping us. So when I was struggling with fatigue a lot, I noticed if I watched any kind of films that were a bit jumpy, that would make my heart rate really fast. And I realized I can't watch those programs before bed. So I've completely taken those out of my life. I just won't entertain them at all. So just have a little think if you're struggling with your sleep about some of your habits. Are you eating quite late before you go to bed, or are you not getting out in nature at all? Perhaps you need some magnesium. But what I really want to do today is I want to dive into the expertise of someone who has real lived experience of insomnia. Let's actually talk to a mum on the ground who's been through it, who's lived through it. And I'm going to be introducing her shortly. She came to my women's circles and she shared some powerful wisdom, experience with another member of my circle. And I said, I've got to get you on the podcast. Introducing you to this week's guest, Lauren Austin-Doyle. Welcome.
Hello.
Lauren is, well, full-time mummy, but you're actually still working doing your singing as well, aren't you? That was
Yep.
your profession before?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. And you've now trained in,
Sound healing, yes, yeah.
tell us a little bit about that.
So for now, I'm just doing like the crystal bowls. I did train in the gong as well, but I'm still building up to that. But that felt more like I was called to train in it. I felt very, oh, I have to do this. Like I
Yes.
just, like a compulsion. But for now, it feels like more something I'm doing for myself. I'm building up to the point where I can maybe create a bigger practice where I can incorporate that in. But I do love it. I'm quite passionate about the benefits of sound healing anyway.
Yeah, and I love it that you can add your voice, like you've got the
Yeah,
confidence to do that as a professional singer, because it's just the extra layer that just brings so much magic to
it
sound
does, yeah.
healing. I know that you're really dedicated to motherhood. You're a mum of young children. How old are your children?
So my son Teddy is 4.5 and my daughter is 2, Clemmy. So still in the season of the sort of peak, just being needed, really needed full time and still semi-sleep deprived and whatnot. But as she became 2, I was like, graduating baby school. I can breathe a
Ah,
little bit. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I don't mean that in a bad way, but yeah, it's
yes.
intense.
It's so
It's intense.
intense. It's like the best job and the hardest job in the world, all
It is
wrapped up
both
into
things.
one, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it certainly is.
You've done really well because you come along to women's circles, and that's no small task when you're mummy of such young children. My women's circles were being run in the daytime, so I'm sure you had to organise babysitters and all
Yeah.
of that kind of thing. So it was quite a big commitment to say yes to yourself, even just a few hours. But you've got travelling either side, so it ends up half a day. So I'd love to ask you, like, how did you manage that? Because there's so many mums, even of older children, who are perhaps even in their teens, who don't give themselves permission to do anything for themselves. They feel so guilty. So how did you allow yourself, if you like, give yourself permission to do that?
I would say that definitely came from a place of having, so I hit an essential rock bottom during my pregnancy with Clemmy, where I ended up having what sort of mainstream would be referred to as a nervous breakdown. I now refer to it as my breakdown breakthrough because I was able to change it to go from that dark place into something that has been what I can now say is the best experience of my life because
Wow.
it's changed me so completely. However, in the process of recovery from that experience, came my obsession with learning about the nervous system, regulation, and everything that I could do to bring myself back to a place of homeostasis, essentially.
Yeah.
And with that came things like circles. That was coming into a place where, whilst I guess nervous system regulation was already something I was aware of and was important to me and human health and everything, spirituality is definitely newer to me. And that process of an awakening came post breakdown, breakthrough.
Hmm.
And I don't necessarily have a very tight-knit community of people who are in that world.
Yeah, of
So I was
course.
really looking for connection with people I could speak to and feel like seen and heard without feeling like they were potentially thinking I was woo. So
Weird things.
I just wanted, and also it's not just about being heard yourself, but listening to others. There's
Mm.
so much wisdom in a group. And I think just listening, sometimes it's not always about sharing, but it's actually just about listening to other people's lived experience that you go, oh wow, that's so powerful. And I've learned I found the answer from your answer,
Yeah,
maybe,
exactly. Yeah. And we don't always find what we're looking for when we go and try new experiences. So do you feel that you did find those people that was accepting of maybe your spirituality or sharing their spirituality?
Undoubtedly. What I
Yeah.
loved about the group of women that I met when I was with you was I felt quite diverse, particularly in ages as well. There's such power in that as well, because each generation can bring different wisdom and different perspective. And I felt the real power from that. I did feel that sense of being held as well, that really listened to. And I think I still am coming from that perspective of new mum energy, got
Yeah,
babies at
exactly.
home. And a lot of
Yeah.
the other women there had either slightly older or much older children. And so I would say something and then they'd be like, it's fine. And it was just really lovely to hear that, to see people on the other end of it and go, oh, yeah,
Yes.
it will be okay.
Yeah, same as you give advice to a new mum where
Exactly.
you'd be like, it's fine. Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll be over this stage
And
in
you
no
earn
time.
that by living the experience. You have
Yeah.
to, that's why it's important to surround yourself with different people, not just an echo chamber of whatever you want to hear sometimes.
Oh, and it can feel really judgmental when you're just with mums of children of the same age. It can feel competitive, even if
Yes,
that is not the intention of mums at that time.
exactly. We're all desperately just trying to do the best job we can do. And I always find it's the people who make different choices from you. It activates that, oh, maybe they're doing it right and I'm doing it wrong. And
Oh
it creates
gosh,
this
yeah.
cycle and
Yeah.
actually you just need to stay rooted and anchored in your gut instincts. Actually, I do think we're all quite out of touch with now because of technology. That's pulls us away from intuition, doesn't it?
Mm.
Googling, oh, how many times should a baby be waking at night at this point and stuff like that. Actually, just
Yeah.
trust in it because
Yeah.
ancient.
We know. Yeah, we do know. And so just before we move on to talking about sleep, a question about your experience with women's circles. You're obviously very confident, and I think that comes from, or you show outer confidence anyway. It takes one to
Yes.
know one.
Yes.
Was it nerve-wracking walking into something new like a circle like you'd never done before, or because you'd experienced other spiritual modalities, was you quite comfortable?
I think I was actually quite comfortable. I don't recall feeling for an hour. There's always that element of you can become a bit charged when you enter a new space and you're a bit unsure of what you're going to be met with. But you do hold a lovely space. And I think quite instantaneously, I felt very, oh no, this is fine, this is comfortable. But then that's part of the sort of structure of circles that I enjoy so much. There's always that moment to ground yourself first.
Yeah,
And that's so
exactly.
key. Drop out of the energy that you're bringing into the room and just bring it back to simplicity and balance. And now we can start sharing. You sharing from a much calmer place then, aren't you?
Yeah, just connecting to the breath is just a great way to start any
Yeah.
practice. And I'm sure you do that as a singer before
Yeah.
you're starting your sets.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about insomnia today. So you said sleep anxiety and insomnia are two things that have been part of your experience. Is that right?
Absolutely. So sleep anxiety in particular started when my son Teddy was newborn. I would say maybe there had been some more in the past, but specifically having that newborn, the fear of going to bed and not knowing what was going to happen, being so sleep deprived. I can remember in his early days, I thought I was dying from tiredness. I was like, I cannot function. So the sleep anxiety came from a place of lots of dysregulation there and fear of, how many times is he going to wake up? How much sleep am I going to get? Trying to control the uncontrollable.
Yes.
So at that point of my life, with a little bit of shift work with my husband and a bit of changing of patterns and stuff, I managed to cope with it and it was okay. It was when I fell pregnant with Clemmy. So both my pregnancies were very challenging times for me. I had hyperemesis with both pregnancies. So that's extreme morning sickness for anyone who isn't familiar with the term. Very debilitating and a dark time for me. When I fell pregnant with Clemmy, I had the hyperemesis, which started to lift at about 23, 24 weeks.
That's a long time in.
Yeah.
And so I can imagine that you must be feeling very depleted.
Yeah. Especially looking after a toddler at the same time and guilty because I'd had to give up so much of what I would normally have given to him energy wise. I was having to
Yeah.
bring back things that wouldn't normally have been in our day, like periods of time in front of the TV. I was like, I can't physically do
Yeah.
anymore with you right now.
And does it affect the baby, the growing baby at all?
No,
No.
because the baby's getting all
They
that
still get all the
nutrient.
nutrients, so it's
Yeah.
just mum who's
And again, it's one of the many things about women's health that has not been explored
Yeah.
fully. And there isn't, no one wants to be a guinea pig as a pregnant woman. So
No.
there aren't many studies.
No.
But unfortunately, it's just for some women, that is the story. But it was as it started to lift that the insomnia started. Now, I can recognize now, as I've come further away, I come from that experience, the more I can reflect clearly. I had a very traumatic birth with Teddy.
Yeah.
And here I was in a very depleted, highly hormonal physical state with
Hmm.
this upcoming birth ahead of me. And my body chose, you've got a window of time here. You've got this huge trauma you've not dealt with, and
Gosh.
you've got to go through that experience again in 3 months. Well, you're going to get rid of all that trauma now. And I didn't get to choose that. It chose me. And it came out, as I say, it manifested in what, like, it was my dad actually who was like, this is a nervous breakdown. And I was like, yeah, I guess when from hearing someone who is more mainstream in his way of thinking, I was like, yeah, that's the way it would seem from the outside. And that happened. It was a perfect storm. It was the insomnia, it was the sort of lack, the depletion from the nausea, a lot of other stuff going on personally for us in this one week. It was in one night, no sleep. It's about 4 a.m. My husband had been in with my son. He came back into the bedroom and I just went, I still haven't slept. And boom, it was like my whole body exploded. And so it was terrifying. And I use that word not lightly because terror is not something I had ever experienced before. It's a very extreme emotion, but my body chose to purge like 33 years worth of stored emotion. But specifically, it was, I think,
The
I
birth
felt to
trauma.
get rid of that trauma in order to make
Hmm.
space for me to get to the door for the next birth. So it was a 2 week period where the world literally stopped. My husband had to stop work in order to literally hold me through it. I'm very blessed that he is a professional in this world. He is a nutritional therapist, but he is also a breath worker. I do believe his main gift in this world is holding space for people who are going through challenging times and guiding people through these things. So I was very lucky. It's a privilege to have someone living with me who can do that and who doesn't mind staying up till 4 in the morning with me while I'm shaking and screaming and crying on the floor.
Is that how it looked for those 2 weeks? Like
Yeah,
what kind of stuff physically was going on?
I remember just saying I can't stop shaking, and I was so scared because of having the baby,
Yeah.
and I was like, my whole body was like, and he was like, it's okay, this is a physical, let it go, this is electricity. And if he hadn't
It's
been there,
amazing. He had that
oh
reassurance
my
for
goodness,
you.
because honestly, if he hadn't been there, I would have checked myself into a psych ward.
And you would have been medicated
Yeah, I
and
would. It was
gosh,
all
yeah.
I wanted. I was scared. It was like it was, as I say, it was happening to me. I had no control. I was completely lost. I just have flashes of memories of just being on the floor and literally holding on to him and just being fearful, literally, for my life, and mostly that I would never get myself back. That this was now my permanence.
Okay,
I couldn't
yeah.
see past it. So it was 2 weeks of it being like that, of it being all-consuming.
And was that happening mostly in the evenings or was it they
All
happen
day,
all
it was all
day?
day. Yeah, I was trying really hard to protect Teddy, and obviously not do it. But there were, in all honesty, there was a lot of time he was present. But we worked very hard to constantly make sure his needs were met, and that we were. He was only 2, but we were
Obviously,
communicating.
yeah, he was very young, but it is really important for all people, not necessarily young children, but all people to see that we go through these periods. I had a period myself where I was releasing a lot of pain from my body and I was screaming. And I wanted my children to hear that. I wanted to hear this is part of the human experience. And
Authentic.
sometimes we need to do this.
Because when they have problems in life, they will know it's valid, it's real, and it's human.
It's
They're not going to
okay.
look at themselves and think, what's happening to
What's
me?
going
I'm the
on?
problem.
Yeah.
They're not.
Yeah,
They're
I need to be
human.
checked into a psych ward.
No.
No, it's, oh, I've seen this. It's rare. I mean, I don't think you even really see it in movies or anything, but to witness it in real life and obviously to have the reassurance of his
Yeah.
dad there as
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
letting him know that
exactly.
everything was
And that calming
okay.
presence, which was
Yeah.
important. And even if he couldn't cognitively understand what we were saying, we did constantly reassure this is not you. This is nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
Mummy's crying because she needs to. This is healthy. This is,
Oh,
and so I hope, and we will revisit that over the
yeah.
years. And
Yeah.
we do immerse them gently in childhood versions of this as well, just to keep them on track. But anyway, so the human body is just the most elegant masterpiece, isn't it? It knows what
So
it's doing
clever.
and it knows what it needs to do. And I think I needed to quite quickly understand and trust that in order to get
Hmm.
through this. So, as I say, if I'd had my choice, I would have checked myself in to a
Yeah.
psych ward and heavily medicated myself to the end of that pregnancy, just get this baby out safely.
To detach, to disassociate
Totally.
from what was happening.
Exactly, because it was too much. It was overwhelming. Ironically, in removing the trauma, I was becoming re-traumatized. I think, again, I will never know how much of it was genuinely me and what needed to happen, and how much of it was influenced by being in a pregnant state. We are not in our normal states at that point. The hormones are everywhere. And I just kept
And
saying, I'm an alien. I felt like an alien
yeah,
again.
and I'm feeling maybe because you didn't have the tools at that point, and so you wasn't in trust either, how much of it was fear as well that was
Oh,
contributing
must have
to
been
it.
huge amounts of that. Yeah.
Oh, it's such a
Yeah,
powerful
yeah.
story, isn't it? What you've gone
Yeah, I
through.
had no lived experience to confirm to me
Mm.
that this would end. But now I do. And now I have a
Hmm.
toolkit because, as I say, I became obsessed. As soon as I became free enough to, after that 2 week period, it became like a survival period to the end of the pregnancy. And every day was minutely managed with ritual and modalities that would just get me to the point where I could sleep and
Yeah.
where I could rest, get me through another day. Let's get this baby here. And then I can assess. How much of this is me? How much of this was pregnancy? And where do I go from here?
What was one or two? You said rituals. What was maybe one thing that you was doing that helped you, just in case there's anyone else who's pregnant and really going through it and they've got no idea what might help? What one thing?
In that breath work and somatic energy release, which at the time I wasn't following like a guidebook or I didn't have a practitioner for somatics. I did have my wonderful breath work practitioner, Susie Smith, who, when I say stepped up during that period of time, like she was on the phone for me. She made time. She held me very much during that period as well. And I'm very grateful to her. But so I had her. So I was doing a form of conscious connected breath work. It was obviously slightly modified for pregnancy. It was a calmer, and obviously your lung capacity is different, all of that. It
Hmm.
does change. But so breath work was really key to me. It will always be to me one of the top
Yeah.
most important things. And then secondary to that was, as I say, it was more of an involuntary somatic release. I had so much electricity coursing through me, and I just had to discharge that.
Shaking.
And again, because I was new to this, I was
Yeah.
like, this looks mental. What am I doing? And now I've done a lot more work and I've
Yeah.
met so many more people. I'm like, okay, no, this is all right. This is human.
It is different from mainstream. It is
Yeah.
quite unusual, but actually,
And
what
now
you
I'm
did,
like, how do people not do
how do they
this?
not? And I think naturally people will make those movements without realizing that it's a
Yeah.
somatic movement, or maybe the body wants to, but they suppress it a little
Yeah,
bit.
I have family members that do this where they sit and they pulse their
Oh,
leg pitches under the
I
table.
see so many men doing that,
Yeah,
and
and
it's
I'm like,
with.
you're releasing energy.
I
Your
think I
body
think it's
is
a lot of sexual
removing,
energy.
releasing that. Maybe, who knows? But it is, yeah, it's something, or maybe it's anger. Like it's just
Yeah, it could
got to come
be.
out somewhere, and I can't express that because it's not safe to express. But I can, my body's going to find a way to get it out.
Yeah, I bet if you feel anxious and you're doing like the tapping, you
Yes,
can't really see it here, but you've
yeah,
got a tap in or you're doing something, it's just releasing
fiddling.
energy.
Yeah, it's a way of doing it, but it's much more efficient to just give it a big old shake and get it all
Exactly.
out.
Yeah, we love that. Put on some drumming
Yeah.
music or something like that
Yeah.
and
So it
shake the
doesn't, yeah, it doesn't
body.
have to be a sort of negative experience. You can turn it into a big old, like you say, dance it out, some
Kitchen
people say, don't they?
party.
Exactly. Yeah. Why not?
So what happened after those two
So
weeks?
yeah, so then it became, like I say, it became more of a survival pattern, which then, fortunately, yes, she was brought into the world beautifully, safely. Everything was fine. And so from that point onwards, she is now two. I am now 2 years into this state of, I don't know what you want to call it, like still feeling some level of recovery and sort of processing. I think that's ongoing, but so deeply immersed and grateful for the experience because when I say everything about me has changed and life has changed, it's not just my life, but it's the way I see life.
Oh gosh,
Everything.
yes.
And within that gentle spiritual awakening came, and the more that I read and the more that I immersed myself in the right company, testing out all these different modalities, the more I was like, there's no way back from this. Like you, and once you've
Your eyes
opened
are
Pandora's
open.
box,
Yeah.
yeah, there's no going
Oh, you
back.
did tell me once though that once you opened Pandora's box, you did want to close it. There
Oh
was
yeah,
a
when it
point.
first happened, that was mushrooms many years ago, and I was like, no. But then that's why I ended up having. So I really love the Irene Lyons. You familiar with Irene Lyons? She's a big somatic queen in from the States. She's Smart Body, Smart Mind is her program, and I've listened to some of her stuff, and she uses the analogy of a swimming pool. The swimming pool being your system with
Yeah.
beach balls in
Mhm.
it. Got a couple of beach balls floating around. Those are your burdens, your loads, your worries, whatever you want to call them, and they've got lots of space, so they're roaming around, right? But if you're not taking those out, if you're not managing them, but you'll keep putting balls in, it's going to be less and less space until
Yeah.
suddenly that pool is so full, it's bursting with balls, they can't move. And eventually they're going to feel like they're going to erupt, and eventually they
They
will.
will. Yeah.
So our job is to manually take these burdens and loads out of us because that's what the body wants to do. And the key thing for me, the real penny dropping moment where I started to understand and trust what my body was doing, and these were my husband's words really that prompted this thought, was recognizing, so simple, especially to anyone who's already been doing this work or is spiritual. Firstly, separating body, mind, and spirit.
Yeah.
For me, just fully recognizing my mind that we believe is the control center is totally separate from this body and definitely from spirit as well. And as I think this is what I said to you when we were in circle that time, when I was like, if you're living in your mind, we don't get to choose to have a good night's sleep. You can't just tell your body, I need a good night's sleep. I'm going to have a good night's sleep tonight. Your mind actually cannot control that, completely out of control. And yet so many of us are living in this space where we just live up here, not tapping into what the body needs.
Yeah.
And when I realized that, I was like, oh, the body is actually boss here. The mind has no control. So our job actually is to quiet the mind, move out of the way, get out of the way, remove the obstructions, and allow the body to do what it naturally wants and can do. It is so eloquent, and it knows, it is intuitively healing all the time. All we have to do is get out of its way.
Absolutely.
And that sounds really easy. It's
Yeah.
definitely not easy.
You did give us the answer. How do we do it?
Yeah. And it's so individual, isn't it, for each person? And all I can say is speak from my own experience. As I've said before, I'm not an expert here. This is just my lived experience. But this is what happened and what worked for me. And simply embodying that knowledge, it was validating, to be honest. It made me feel less crazy. I was like, okay. And I daily say to myself, my spirit is who I am. My body is what I have. And it is my body I must regulate.
Absolutely.
And then it gives me this forgiveness, this self-forgiveness, and this space to move forward. I'm like, I don't have to feel guilty or ashamed if I'm not able to sleep, because those are weird emotions that can come up.
So strange, isn't it?
And also you have to remember there are points in the night when our brain goes into an almost state of psychosis, almost like a hallucinogenic state. I believe it's between 3 and 4. If you do have a sleepless night, sometimes you get to a point where you are loopy and you just start, your brain's going onto all sorts of strange things.
But it's a form of punishment in some countries, isn't it? Like keeping people awake.
It makes you feel crazy.
It makes you feel crazy. But just before we go on to the tools, I just want to go back to that beach ball analogy you use. And I want to speak specifically to mums or maybe dads that are listening to the podcast. If your pool is getting full, the kind of ways that it might express, so the kind of ways that the balls might pop out, I think a lot for parents is losing your shit with your kids. And then parents feel so guilty, like they don't understand why them just dropping that cup of water on the floor or whatever it was made them absolutely explode, and they start to berate themselves for it,
of course,
for probably months. But really, all they need is some time for themselves, some self-care, some body care. Is there any other ways that you'd say that you've experienced as a mum of young children where it might show up? Obviously, you had your breakthrough, so that was like the final point. Is there other ways that you think it shows up? Do you think insomnia is one of the ways?
Yeah, for me, the insomnia was specifically pregnancy related in regards to really not being, but then it was very hard. It took a lot of commitment to the processes. So for me, it's when the children go to sleep at night, it is turning off all devices and carving out this time for me.
Yeah.
And that is compulsory for me.
Yeah, you're very strict on that. And I think a lot of people who struggle with sleep know that.
It's hard to do.
But it's like they feel like, you feel like it's your you time, but is it really? Do you really feel fulfilled and great after?
And if all you're doing is doom scrolling all night, it actually isn't filling your cup at all anyway. It's not making you feel good.
All the comparison.
And you are paying that cost the next day.
Yeah.
And I think you also just have to keep remembering this is just a season, this peak season. Like you're in a different season of parenting right now. I'm sure that you can trust your children will go to bed when they need to, and that you can have an evening where you can maybe go out or you can sit and do stuff without worrying about going and managing bedtime or wake up and stuff like that. Exactly. It's different. So for now, I'm still in that period, but I can trust in the fact it's not always going to be like this. But for now, I do need to take extra care of myself and my needs, because for example, I can remember a couple of months ago just getting to a place where I was recognizing I'm actually dysregulated at the moment. You know, it comes and goes, life isn't linear, but I was particularly feeling it. I was on the floor and I'm tying the shoes of one of my children, and the other one jumps on my back and pulls my neck backwards. And I was just like, burst into tears because it was just this state. And I was like, okay.
So that's another way then it could show up in random crying if you like.
Just push you over the edge. It's finding that self-compassion and self-forgiveness. It's not that one thing that is the problem. It's all
that's the straw that broke the camel's back.
That was the one ball that caused the eruption. So that means that you need to check in with yourself and recognize you've not been removing the balls from your pool.
Absolutely.
And your nervous system is overwhelmed.
And I would like to add, as a mum of older children, my children now are 13 and 16. If I look back to when my children were really young, it's probably my biggest regret is that I didn't just have earlier nights. Like my life would have been so much better and I would have been so less tired every single day if I'd just gone to bed earlier. But I was trapped in that matrix of you put the TV on in the evenings and you want some time to unwind, but truly it did not give me what I needed at that
No.
time. So, can you tell us a little bit about how did you put that into place? How did you go from trying not to look at your phone or trying not to watch TV to really honoring your needs?
I think it came from a place initially where I literally, particularly when I was having the breakthrough, I couldn't tolerate screens, reading, I couldn't consume any material at all. Everything was
You
triggering,
was at
too jarring.
capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't watch TV, I couldn't read, couldn't do anything. I was forced into a stripped back place from
Right.
which I built this new practice. So again, I can see that may be slightly different to anyone who's not quite hit that level,
It's
but they're
like the
aware they
rock
need to.
bottom.
Yeah. So in
Mm.
some ways, there's a weird privilege with that as well. It was easier because I was coming from literally rock bottom. But that being said, that's just the truth of my experience. Yeah, phones compulsorily would go off as the children went to sleep. And then begins journaling. I've journaled for God knows 15, 16 years. But it's only recently, very recently, that I've been able to see it as an actual therapy. It's taken me
Okay.
that long to get to the point where I am now using it. And it's such a powerful tool for me now. I always did it, but I was maybe trying to write for someone else as if someone else was going to read it, trying to make beautiful sentences or express something in a certain way. Now I'm realizing, no, it's about dumping these thoughts out of the body. Sometimes it's literally just words.
Okay.
Just single word. Other days it's much more eloquent and it's got more of a story. I don't tend to go back and read my journals, but if I do, sometimes I'm like, I've got no idea what I was on about that day. Other days I've completely curated that whole day's experience. But I don't put any pressure on myself with journaling. I let whatever needs to come out. Breath work in my evening ritual.
Okay.
And now EFT has become my newest love. I'm really happy. I'm really enjoying that. And I've not found I've needed to do that for very long per se. None of these things need to take up hours of your evening. Or even just the somatic practice of where you ground yourself and you're just taking your surroundings really slowly. How often do we just sit with
presence? Yeah.
Just let your eyes drift around the room and remind your nervous system, everything is safe. I'm at home. Children are in bed, everyone's calm, because all day is
it's non-stop.
Oh, and yes, of course, that nervous system's getting tighter and tighter. I always use this visual as well. It really helped me back in those early days of I would see my nervous system in my head, which for me always looked like a kind of wild tree with loads and loads of offshoots. Yes, like the way that the nervous system does look like. And I would imagine it was like flickering. I always used to, during it, I used to use the phrase, I felt like I'd been scalped and I was walking with a raw nervous system. I could feel it. And it was like buzzing, like a flickering light that's really jarring. And I would see a dim switch and I would lower the dim switch before I started anything and physically watch myself turn that light down and then start the work, the grounding work. And again, it's so individual. Things that work for me might not work for others, but you have to do these practices and try all these different things to say, that one really works for me.
And also things don't work instantly. Like you just said about the journaling, that's a habit that I tried to pick up for years, on, off, on, off. And then at some point it dropped in, and you said there it took you 16 years to really drop in at a deep, authentic level, writing just for yourself. So I do think a lot of these things, it's not just to try it once or twice and expect an immediate result.
Particularly meditation.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Absolutely.
It's a life's work, isn't it? Meditation. Some days I'm like, gosh, that was so powerful. I'm amazing. And then other days I'm like, I cannot do this today. Just meditate. Which doesn't, obviously, is never going to happen. You can't force it. So it's a combination of practices. Sometimes I watch a lot of the sound healing on YouTube. There's a lovely guy who does crystal bowls. And I'll just sit and stare at that for half an hour. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's done the trick. It's very dependent on the needs, where I'm at in my cycle, what's happened in that day. So a good example, that was only a couple of weeks ago. I hadn't, particularly busy week, hadn't really been doing quite as much work as I should have done in the evenings to regulate, to discharge from the day.
Not should have.
Could have, yeah. I was getting to bedtime and I was thinking, I'm so tired. I haven't got the energy to do the breath work.
Yeah.
And I was falling asleep. So I was like, so it's fine. It's not getting in the way of any sleep. So that's okay. And then I got into bed one night and I did go to sleep, which can happen for some people. It's not always the same. Some people fall asleep and then wake up and vice versa. But I did fall asleep and quite quickly, I think it was about 10 minutes in, jolt awake. And I was like, oof, okay. I got a lot of movement coming on here and I'm feeling a sense of panic. And straight away, my brain, the old patterns of sleep anxiety are coming in. You're not going to fall asleep. You're not going to fall asleep. You're not going to fall asleep. What's the time now? You start clock checking, you start panicking, just another hour. But I didn't let that happen. I immediately got out of the bed. And for me, this is key. Don't lie in the bed. If you tossing and turning, telling yourself to sleep is not going to make you sleep. This is personal opinion, as I say, not an expert, but for me, it doesn't work. You are just going to get yourself more distressed. I removed myself from the bed and I could recognize straight away my body. If my mind is not the boss here, my body is the boss. My body is choosing to prioritize something else rather than sleep.
This is the line I've been waiting for. This is what you shared in Circle.
This means that my body perceives something else to be of higher priority than sleep. Something is a threat to my system right now. So my job is to remove this threat or find it, release it, in order for my body to now prioritize sleep.
That was really powerful. Can you say that sentence again for the listener?
If the mind is not the power here, but the body is, the body will prioritize sleep if it deems sleep to be its ultimate priority. And let's face facts, sleep is a priority. We need it daily. We need a good 8 hours daily. So if your body is choosing not to sleep right now, that means something else is even more important to it than rest. And that is the key. Don't lay there tossing and turning, tell yourself just fall asleep. It won't work. Get up, get out, and remove whatever needs to come out through whatever modality works best for you.
What could that be, and what might that look like
for
you?
If in that specific example, for me, the quickest way to it is breath work, definitely. However, I can't always, and that's something I've learned to accept. It doesn't always come with thoughts and clarity. Sometimes that night, for example, I went straight out to the sofa and I started to do the breath work. And I had this, it was almost like it was a sob, it was a cry, but it almost felt like I threw it up.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I was like, ugh. And the minute I felt this sob come out, I was like, that was it. That was
so you're detaching from the need to know what it is and just trusting.
Which took a lot for me because I'm an analyzer. I like to break down the psyche, why I want the answers. I want to understand myself as much as possible. And sometimes you can. Sometimes those thoughts come. You'll be meditating and boof, this beautiful, perfect piece of clarity will come to you and you'll go, that's what I've been looking for. And often it's really simple. It's not actually complex, but...
No, we make things complex.
Exactly. And it would just simply be like, keep going. And it would be like, oh, okay. Yeah, I do just need to keep going. But other times, sometimes it comes with these huge emotions and all this stuff comes out and there's no clarity, there's no words for it. But that is enough. That's okay. Your body is still doing what it needed to do. It's always going to be some form of stored emotion. But you could have been storing this your whole life.
Yeah, it could be really old.
It could be,
exactly. It could be from the womb.
Literally.
And what breath are you tapping into then? Is there a specific
type of breath I would do? So I generally, for me, again, this is coming from a non-trained perspective, just to be clear. I spend a lot of time with breath practitioners, but I myself am not trained. I generally will do some 4-7-8 or some nasal breathing at the start, but then I'll do the open mouth, big inhalation and relaxed, shorter exhale. And that's a circular breath, so no pauses in between. That's if it's not coming out and I need to activate my system to release it. Sometimes we have to wake ourselves up further to get access to what is stored.
If it's deep or something like that. So the 4-7-8 would be an inhale for 4 seconds, retain for 7 seconds, and then an exhale, usually through the mouth, or do you use
I do through the mouth.
Through mouth, So that's down regulates you.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And if I can't find it through a down regulation start of breathing, then I will do something,
circular.
Exactly.
Okay, so then if you tried, say, the 4-7-8, that didn't work, so then you went into circular, you felt the relief. Would you then use the 4-7-8 afterwards?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. All right.
Although sometimes it segues into a nice it's different, but sometimes it will go into a meditative state. But normally, because it can come with an emotional release, from that you feel this big exhale and you slump.
And I can imagine, so you're organically following what the body needs because you've been listening and learning what your body needs. And I could imagine sometimes maybe a shake needs to come, or a rock needs to come, or a hold or a tap needs to come as well. So there's
because following that emotional release will come the stored physical energy as well. And that was something, again, for me, took a long time to accept. Was human and I wasn't weird. My past life before all of this was very perfectionism, aesthetic based. Yeah, needing to be immaculate and in control. It was all about presentation and that perception that I had my shit together, that I was fully in control, and this compulsion to need everyone to think I had it together. Of course, no one does. There is no such thing as perfection.
It's an illusion.
And I am still working on that, and I probably will be for a long time. But the most important part is that what this has gifted me, this whole experience has gifted me the map to me. I have a map. It's not finished. There's all sorts going on. Or rather, a ladder. I'm at the ladder. Sometimes I'll go up a few steps and sometimes I come back down. It's life. But the difference is what a toolkit gives you is confidence. So when you feel these things rising up, you think, oh, no, no, I'm feeling sensations that echo that experience. Oh, no, I don't need to panic because I know I have a toolkit. And I know that, okay, that's fine. Tonight, I have got to make sure that I go through my list and I resolve this. I
Yeah.
remove this from my system, because no one human can carry a lifetime of trauma and emotion without
Absolutely.
resolving it and releasing it.
And all of this takes awareness. So some people listening might still be at a point where they're not aware of any of that. They think, I don't have any of those feelings. Those feelings bubble up, and because we don't want to feel them, we pick up the phone to scroll, or we put the TV on, or we might have wine or sugar, or we all have our coping mechanisms. Maybe we have an argument with someone. We have our ways. And so really it's teaching yourself to be aware, or being the observer of your feelings in your body, and noticing when they're starting to bubble up, which is what you're doing there, and then using the tools rather than choosing to soothe or suppress.
Yeah.
So when you was in Circle, you shared with someone who was having trouble sleeping some techniques like pushing the wall and that kind of thing with your feet. So tell us a little bit about that, when you've used that in your life, how it's helped you.
Yeah, so physical, that was particularly back then. So when you have that physical energy, and particularly if you don't have someone with you, because I'm aware for most people listening, they're not going to have a breath worker with them necessarily. So there are different ways to get energy out of the body. If you are not necessarily comfortable with shaking it out, or you're not feeling that. So anger, for example, for me, often it's quite key to me, actually. This is, again, a personal thing. The key to me finding clarity and getting that release is sometimes labeling the underlying emotion. 9 times out of 10, it is one key emotion. Happened last night. I had quite a big release, and I was like, this is fear. I've got a lot of fear right now.
What did fear feel like? So someone who...
So fear is my least favorite emotion.
Okay.
I hate it, which is ironic, because I think previously I would have said sadness or anger maybe, but I didn't have a relationship with anger. That's been an interesting journey for me. I wasn't exposed to anger my entire life. My childhood was a non-anger zone. We didn't do that in my household. So I used to say things, and I've heard myself many times as a young adult saying, oh, I don't do anger. I don't have anger. I've just never been angry. Of course I did. It was all suppressed within me. So now that I am more open and I allow my emotions to come out, I had a debt of anger that had to come out.
Gosh.
And actually that felt really good. I remember when it first came out, my husband would say to me,
got a lot of energy, anger, hasn't it? It can be the same as passion, that kind of like fiery.
It's okay. And that was really lovely experience for me to realize it's not all bad, and actually anger is really valid and important.
Extra boundaries, then you have every right. So let's go back to fear. What did fear feel like for you?
Choking. Yeah, like I'm being... like I want to curl up and disappear, and I just want to be held. And I think particularly as a mother, where you're so needed and your output is so high, not a season for input, it's not a season to be held yourself as much. Although it's very key to try and find those times and those places to find that sensation for yourself, because you do give so much. And it does make you want to curl in a ball and just hide in a cave. It's quite primal, isn't it? But fear it's that real, it pushes you into that fight, flight, freeze vibe. And for me, I tap into freeze more than anything else. And fawn, if you're familiar with that. Very much for me. I will make friends with the people tiger. I wrote the book on that, sadly, but I'm working on that too.
Yes, we're all recovering people pleasers who are listening to this podcast. And actually for men as well, I see it a lot in women, but now I'm seeing how we don't notice it as much in men, but they are, a lot of men are people pleasers too.
I really feel for men, and I think that we as women, we have a system within ourselves as a collective, and we have permission. Our cycle forces permission. We emote through life, and we have each other. We do this. I do this with my friends.
I know,
even if it's on voice notes.
We have a network.
Even if I can't connect with them face to face, we find a way to hold each other. And it is different for men. It's not as straightforward, and it's not as easy. And actually, the more circles I attend and the more I learn about that, the more I think, gosh, they need this for me.
They really need it. Okay, what about anger? What is anger? Because you hadn't tapped into it before, so you were like, I don't have anger.
Yeah, so anger coming back was the pushing.
The pushing.
Yeah, that's a really good one to shift angry energy. Or kicking, not literally obviously kicking anyone or anything necessarily, but just for me, I remember the first time it happened, I was like, I don't know what this is. Again, luckily I was being guided through that with my husband, but he was like, it's anger, so just try kicking. And I was like, that feels great. I felt, yes.
I wanted to stab. I was like
yeah. Okay, like you can use your
imaginary stab.
Like if you have an issue with someone, or an incident happened to you, and you've got all this stored anger from that, take yourself in your head back to that moment and do whatever feels right in your head. You're not literally doing it. It doesn't make you a bad person.
So you're air kicking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Potentially. And that's the same, you can
Or a punch bag.
but pushing against the floor gives you that resistance. You're going to get a lot more out of that physical. And that sometimes I'm just like on my hands and knees and I'll just push against the floor, like in a rhythm. And that does start to tap you into it. And then you can start getting into the shakes. And the shake for me, I just like, is sometimes it's just like, it's really
Small,
tiny.
yeah.
And you're like, okay, I'm just getting into that niggle and I can feel it's a tiny muscle in my back and I've got it. It takes time again.
Yeah, you can hear you've done a lot of work with that. And thinking about toddlers who get angry a lot if you say no to them, they stomp about. They love to stomp on the floor. And my niece recently, she was very upset. Her dad wasn't with us and she wanted daddy and she was crying. And I said, start stamping, start stamping. And we're all walking down the street together, all stamping, moving that energy. And it calmed her down so quickly.
I didn't tell her emotions were bad. You
No.
actually said them they were valid.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of us, and it is quite, we want as parents, especially when your children are doing that in public, there is a part of you that's just stop because you're making a scene and I'm panicking and I don't know how to handle this. But that is when this work becomes so key, because it's in passing these messages down to our children that it's key, and telling them that those emotions are all welcome and that they are valid.
Yeah. And I'm thinking of supermarket scenes. I've definitely had them myself with my children. But you could just leave at any time. Like, just leave the shop in there and just leave the shop together if you can. It doesn't have to happen in there if you feel like everyone's staring at you.
Yeah.
You'll be teaching society. If you can go and do it right in there, you'll be teaching society how to handle these moments. So, if someone felt like, how would someone know if at nighttime they couldn't sleep and it was anger? What would that feel like in the body if it was suppressed and they wasn't used to tapping into that? What's it felt like for you?
Yeah, I find anger maybe I can find that one a little bit easier because it's very hard to put words to some of these things, isn't it? You're challenging me here. It's good. And I don't find that emotion, that the named emotion comes to me straight away.
Okay.
Sometimes it can come quicker than others. If I remove myself from that surrounding and I take myself into a new space, because that I think sometimes helps, take yourself away from this space where you've been struggling and you're in that sort of repetitive zone of I'm not sleeping. New space, change the scenery, change the posture, start breathing, and ask yourself, okay, what is this? What am I feeling? Where am I feeling it? What does that feel like? Is it tingling? Is it fizzing? Is it a hard lump of rock in my chest? In all honesty, every time it's slightly different.
Yeah.
There isn't one given feeling that I associate with one given emotion. However, the word will come to you because your system knows, your system does know. And as I say, it doesn't always know the why or where that emotion is coming from. And sometimes it's fear. For me, I think last night, a lot of what I'm dealing with at the moment is my son's going to school. And it's this, and that is fear for me. It's like fear for him, fear for me, fear for that experience. Is he going to be okay? Am I going to have to manage very big emotions, which I do struggle. I struggle with parting myself from him when he is sad like that. So I am fearful of him going to school and me having to do this at the school gates. But it's also then going, okay, this is me that's experiencing this fear right now, not him necessarily. Speak to that separately, but I don't want to project that emotion onto him. And I have to trust also he is his own person. And just because I was scared going to school and just because I have fear for him doesn't mean that he is going to have that experience. So it's just trusting in the process and also trusting that I will meet and support him appropriately in that moment as best I can anyway.
And if you are very unconsciously fearful, which you're speaking from consciousness there, the children can pick up and tap into that as well. So they feel fearful because they're feeling your fear. So to be able to identify it and handle it as much as you can, remembering that imperfect action, or you had your own quote for that. What did you say?
Oh, perfectionism isn't real.
Yeah, perfectionism isn't real. Yeah, just doing the best that you can, but noticing, like you're saying, is it a projection? Is that fear? Is it even real?
And is it based on reality, or am I taking messages from my own childhood? I hated going to school and I hated leaving my mum. I just reliving that as a mirror through my son, which, as I've said before, I think that our children, there is that phrase that children are the greatest medicine. And I remember my husband and I eye rolling at that ironically before we had children, which is always the case. There's lots of things you eye roll at before you have children.
Oh, so many.
And then you have them and you're like, oh no, goodness me, gosh, they are the greatest medicine. And it's finding the detachment and the boundary in order to receive the medicine, work on it without that pushing onto them, and still allowing them the space to just live their life authentically, knowing they're not you and they are going to have their own unique experience of this life. Whilst in them living, I get a chance to heal my inner child and my now as well, he will go off and do his own thing, and as he should.
Absolutely. So you shared a lot of tools for sleep anxiety and insomnia. So we've got like really the feeling the emotion and moving it in any way that it wants to be moved.
Yeah.
And you've spoken a lot about, I'm going to say bedtime routine, like kids' language here,
Sleep
but have
hygiene.
sleep
Yes,
hygiene,
yeah.
exactly. Is there any other major things that you have done that have helped your insomnia or your sleep anxiety that we haven't spoken about?
It would be remiss to not mention nutritional support. Speaking to yourself here, of course, magnesium, valerian root is one I'm currently. So I ironically my husband is a specialist of the organic acids test. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Yeah.
Checks all I don't know, I think it's 80 odd markers of the body. And naturally, when you live with a nutritional therapist, sometimes you don't end up doing the test very often because we're so busy. And recently we were like, we've got to do it. It's been a little while since I did one, and I did one. And the results came back. And he was like, look, everything's fine, but your body is just showing it's stressed.
Yeah.
And that was a really bitter pill for me to swallow, because I know on an inner level I am stressed. I know that I'm stressed because my life is stressful right now. That's just the validation of that. There's a reason why I'm stressed. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not a failure. I am stressed because life is stressful right now. However, it was tough for me because I was like, but I'm doing all this stuff. I have my nightly practice, and my body is still, and I was like, look, it's okay. So adjusted all the nutritional support accordingly. And that is obviously something you can really only take from a trained professional, because again, that's not my area of expertise. It's just something I pick up on from being married to him. But that is key, I think. And even if that's like an Epsom salts bath, or finding magnesium butter, or whatever it is, or I just take magnesium glycinate. But the valerian root really helps me switch off. And there's lots of other.
Is that a tea or a supplement?
I take it as a supplement, yeah.
Because the problem with a tea is often then you need to keep going to the toilet in the night, isn't it?
Which is another thing for me. And sometimes, particularly with the children, and if I wake up because I need to go to the loo, and I'm like, gosh, it's such a waste of time. She's asleep right now.
Yeah, okay. So nutritional support, anything else, or are they your main ones?
I think those are the main ones. So yeah, journaling, breathwork, meditation, listening to guided meditations. You know what? I do read a lot, as in fiction. It's a bit of a comfort for me. And actually, I've been sitting with that recently and thinking about the fact that when you read fiction or non-fiction, if that works for you, that is meditation, because you completely go into a theta state. If you're so immersed in that story that you are in that world right now, you're following those characters and you're visualizing it, that is a form of meditation in a way.
I can see that, yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's quite a key part to again, this is all super individual, isn't it? But for me, I do read every night just before bed.
Your wind down.
Yes, it's part of my falling asleep thing. Some people like to listen to things as they fall asleep and stuff like that. And I am aware that in an ideal world, we shouldn't have aids to fall asleep, but it's not an ideal world, and I'm not in an ideal season right now. So I think the biggest key is self-compassion and forgiveness, that if you need something right now to assist you, like you do need to listen to something or read something or whatever it is to get to sleep, if that safely gets you to sleep without suppressing and ignoring the body's needs, then that's okay. It's all okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just the last question, what was your relationship with caffeine? Did you have to cut that out?
I cut it off at 12. That's my 12 p.m. lunchtime. Again, there's no reason for that particular time. Historically, I never found I was super wired from it. There are certain days, if I can feel my system is particularly activated, that I will think I've had one. I mean, my children wake at 5. I always have a cup of coffee at 5. But whereas I might have another cup at, say, 8 o'clock, there are certain days when I'm like, I'm good, I'm not going to do that, because I know I don't need it. I am in an activated state, and that's going to aggravate that. I do know ultimately that, again, if you need to tap into your own needs with that one, because if you do respond very quickly and highly to caffeine, then it's worth getting rid of it, because if it's an agitator.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it doesn't have to be forever. Again, this life isn't linear.
That's the answer, isn't it? Anything that you're committed to doesn't have to be forever. It's just helping you in that season of your life. And it might be what was helping you previously. For example, maybe caffeine got you through your work day. It might not help you in this season of your life. Or the TV helped you wind down when you was just working but didn't have to get up at 5 a.m.
If you're highly suffering with anxiety, it's likely caffeine isn't going to help, because it's going to create a higher sense of frequency like that in the body. And being purist about anything is not helpful, I don't think. And too much discipline is not helpful either. So it's about, and also, as I say, just because having these rituals and these needs that I have to do every night, I'm also really aware I don't want that to become a job, and I don't want that to become a sort of non-negotiable.
Your should list where you're putting all this guilt on yourself.
There have been periods of time recently. I had a whole week where I was like, I don't want to do anything. I'm going to watch a wildlife documentary.
Nice.
It's not agitating. It's not activating.
Yeah.
It's relaxing, and I'm in a nice state as I'm watching it. But I'm not going to watch a horror film.
Yeah.
That won't work for me, but maybe for some people.
No,
that does work.
I said that at the beginning, just before I recorded, just before you got here, that I had to take all of that activating kind of TV away. And I wasn't suffering from insomnia, but mine was burnout and adrenal fatigue, and my nervous system was very overstimulated. And those kind of programs probably aren't helping people.
And let's be key as well, because just because you might be sleeping, you might not be getting deep rest.
Absolutely.
And that's key, because while some people might think, I don't have a problem sleeping, but I don't ever feel replenished.
Yeah.
And that key, are you getting your REM? The other thing I don't do on a personal level for me, I don't do sleep trackers.
Yeah, I thought you might say that. You don't track, because it adds another layer of stress.
I started it when my son was born, and oh my goodness me, did not work for me. But look at what I got last night.
Yeah.
And now I can't function today. No, go on how you feel.
Exactly.
Not about what the tracker says. But again, some people, my husband uses the Aura Ring and he loves it. It works for him. He's not so emotionally attached to his life experience the way I am. I'm so emotional.
Yeah.
I can't really detach myself from that information, whereas he's all data. It's helpful to him. But
yeah. Lauren, you shared so much value in this podcast. Thank you for sharing all your modalities, your experience. It's some experience that you have been through, isn't it? And it's very courageous and brave to share it, to put it out there in the world. Is there a place people should follow you because you're going to be doing your sound healing, or is that not quite up and ready yet?
No, I'm not. I don't think I'm ready yet to put it out into the world, but I will. We
can add it in the future.
Exactly.
You can let me know. I can come back and I can edit the episode.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, just say a big thank you for everything you've shared, and hope to see you at some events soon.
Certainly.
Thank you a million times over for joining us on this podcast episode. You can support the show by giving us a follow on any podcast platform you're listening to this on. If you already follow us, then thank you so much. And maybe share this episode if you think if someone comes to mind where you think they'd really benefit from listening to this. This is one way that we like to spread the love with our friends, is sharing podcasts or playlists. So let them know that we're thinking about them. So just send it on to them with a few words about why they might enjoy it. And if you'd like to check out any of our in-person events or retreats or our online offerings, head over to our website, www.holistichealthcollective.co.uk. We'll see you on the next episode.